clients that will not leave us, and maybe our model will identify them as a possible churn. So I will give discount for someone that will not leave us. I am losing money with this group. So in that context, the definition of what is leave us, the measurement of Erythropoietin 2, the second group, these metrics are very important. But at first, I need that my client understand how to evaluate all this scenario in terms of metrics. So I can have a small table with just two columns, these two numbers that I mentioned, and this is the perfect data in that case. But if my client, my stakeholder, doesn't understand the meaning of these two columns is not useful at all. So I need to show them other things that make more sense for them in terms of decision. What I mean with this example is less about the data, is more about who is using, you know. There is some projects where I deliver very important things with very simple information. Other cases, I have very complex things translated in very simple information. And there are things very complex in complex terms. We need to consider the level of maturity of our stakeholder. This is more important than the solution itself. There are some studies that show us like 87% of the data science projects end up being not using. It's ridiculous. It's like 9 in 10. It's ridiculous. We can fire every data scientist because, but makes sense when we talk with the stakeholder, with the tech guys, tech women, because they have different priorities and they don't realize the priority each other to negotiate something in the middle. And I think for us from tech, this negotiation is more critical because we are delivering for someone. So we have clients. They are hired us to help them to make things. And in that terms, I really believe that 10 or 15% of our job is teaching our stakeholder what they need to do at that point to use better their data, their solutions, and everything. So the perfect data is the one that my client will understand, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And that is where I think you are referring to data literacy levels for customers. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever we can say, that the other day I was discussing with someone that for almost all of the fields, you talk about physics, you talk about bio, you talk about chemistry, you talk about any other field, these guys have their own societies, these guys have their own councils, where every new bit and piece of discovery or invention are evaluated, they discuss blah blah blah. But unfortunately, in data world, we don't have any data society. So our all data landscape, which I call data product landscape, is driven by vendors. Unfortunately, vendors or product owners, right? Someone or the see we all know that last time it was data mining, then it was started calling data science, then now we are calling it, then we started calling it Gen AI, now we are calling it AI agents, all are same actually. All are machine learning models, nothing more than that, right? So this literacy, right, that's a challenge in current era that businesses say, respectfully, I would say businesses are more relying on vendors and product rather than their own teams. I would say yes, we need to train businesses on data literacy, but I think the internal teams also need to be trained. So when vendor and product team comes over, then internal team should be the face to talk to them. Of course, business gives the requirement, but this internal data team, which I call it data practice management team, that should be the one who should evaluate and say, okay, this Gen AI, this is how Gen AI is supposed to work, not everything. Right now, everybody is expecting you can build everything from Gen AI, which is not true. Let's go towards this data product management. How do you see this product management maturing in current era since this Gen AI come in picture? Because now everybody want to create this data product. So this data product should be based on user requirement or industry's best practices.
I think both. It is similar to the last answer actually, because I believe we need to start where the stakeholder is. In my experience, every time I try different, the things take more time to be on track. Because and actually it is a principle from communication. We need to start where our audience is. So if we will start with good practice, but the client, the stakeholder, doesn't realize the importance of it at that point, for them, it's like, you are not solving my problem. I'm going to change. I'm going to look to other group, other parts of the world, because they always can find someone that is
Who will
okay to deliver without the good
that's what they
practice.
want to say, right?
Yeah. So for me, the for us from tech, the most important part is learning to versionate the things. We can deliver something simple and understand there are different priorities for different moments. At the beginning, our priority is understanding the problem, understanding the context of even the technology, because sometimes we think we understand what is going on around us in terms of technology, particularly in new projects. If we are hired as a consultant, external consultant, we don't know the reality of the technology, the reality of the governance. We always receive some presentations, but they are not fully true, you know. It's like a puzzle. And at the beginning of the puzzle, we started to understand the big part of the thing, the border of the thing. So our first priority is understand the problem of the client, understand how we can solve small problems fast, because that builds confidence, that build trust between us, and also understand the technology scenario. And that's okay, delivery is something that is not 100% good practice, but is not okay, delivery something like 30% if we don't know that. If we know, that's okay. Because if we know, we can, okay, I'm gonna deliver something simple here because I want that. And with that answer from the client, I can have more clarity about my next step, if I should go left or right. So it's about a roadmap. It's about thinking in time, not thinking in today terms. It's not about this week. It's about this quarter, you know. But I really see that as a really difficult thing for people from tech. I think we are not training for thinking in time. We are trying to deliver the best solution ever each time. And so it's very common for me to have some little fights with my developers because they no, we cannot do that in that terms. No, no, we can. It will bring problem tomorrow. But a big problem is if the client doesn't use. It's a big problem for us now. One word that make keep twisting in my conversations was sandbox. I love that word. Oh my God, I love it because I can. No, think in terms of a sandbox repo for now, and in the next uh, two or three sprints, we can go from sandbox. Sometimes I do a version 8 sandbox, even like a sandbox 2 advanced pre-homologation or something like that. And then we can, of course, that depends of the contest. It's not an answer for all scenarios. I am talking more about a new project, a new contest, a new client. When we have more knowledge about the scenario, we don't need to start in a sandbox. We can start with 60% of good practice marketing.
No, let's talk about this sandbox. In your experience, and what is your practice that you want to create sandbox into development environment or directly into production? Because sandbox concept came from an environment in production for business users to play around. That was the initial idea of sandbox. So what you are saying about sandbox?
For me, sandbox is a place where I can convince my data scientist that that's okay. Don't 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 build a function to deliver the KPIs we are building. Because if he or she create a function for each KPI, we are trying to understand, we don't know the KPI yet. We are trying to understand with the client what they need, what they already do. So if it's a function, it's more difficult to show that for the client. It's more distant from what they understand about the world. But if I build something simple like if blah blah blah, else blah blah blah, I can share this screen with the client and discuss some things. But sometimes this logic will be replicated 15 times. So for the data science, the tech people, they want to build I don't want copy paste that 15 times. But I need to convince that sometimes, of course, it's not always, but sometimes it's better do that 50 times because the client will see the thing and show us that and I don't know, 3 or 4 of that are different. And we can have a communication more close to what the client actually understand.
You
And
are
then we can see the patterns better. For me, it's like machine learning is about learning, right? Artificial intelligence is about learning from data, like you said. But we cannot learn patterns, advanced patterns, without have sure, without the sure that we are looking for the right side of the thing. We are taking the right path. And so we need first understand the target, understand the kind of errors that are more critical than others. So